1800 hours Pakistan Standard Time. Assalamu alaikum. This is Radio Pakistan. The news read by Daman Zaman. The headlines. The Prime Minister has thanked the overseas Pakistanis for sending record remittances over the last 8 months. The Foreign Minister says Pakistan will continue to take all necessary measures to ensure its security and maintain credible minimum deterrence. The Minister for Human Rights says the government has taken several steps to ensure the rights of the people, particularly the vulnerable segments of the society. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, a complete strike will be observed on Wednesday on the occasion of an expected visit by a group of selected European parliamentarians to the occupied territory. Iran says it will block stamp inspections by the United Nations nuclear watchdog if other parties to the 2015 nuclear deal fail to fulfill their obligations. The United Nations Secretary General, expressing concern over the increased use of force, has urged the authorities in Myanmar to ensure that the right of peaceful assembly is fully respected. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Imran Khan says record increase of up to 24% has been recorded in remittances as compared to the corresponding period last year. In his tweets today, the Prime Minister said remittances remained above $2 billion over the last 8 consecutive months. He said the remittances were $2.27 billion in the month of January this year, growing 19% than the corresponding period last year. The Prime Minister thanked the overseas Pakistanis for sending record remittances. Alluding to the industrial sector, he said it is also showing sustained growth. The Prime Minister said large-scale manufacturing saw another double-digit growth of 11.4% in the month of December last year. He said the cumulative growth of the sector during the first 6 months of the current fiscal year is above 8%. The Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says India has nuclearized the Indian Ocean and continues to induct advanced weapons systems and naval delivery platforms in pursuit of its hegemonic designs. Addressing the International Maritime Conference in Karachi today, he said the Indian Ocean offers promising potential for mutual cooperation and collaboration. However, he said the geostrategic competition and pursuit of military dominance by some states have gravely jeopardized that potential. The Foreign Minister said in the light of these developments, Pakistan will continue to take all necessary measures to ensure its security and maintain credible minimum deterrence. He said India's belligerent and aggressive policies pose an immediate and pervasive threat to international and regional peace and security. The Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi will pay a 3-day visit to Egypt tomorrow on the invitation of his Egyptian counterpart. According to the Foreign Office, during the visit, the Foreign Minister will hold bilateral and detailed consultations with his Egyptian counterpart and call on other dignitaries. He will also interact with leading Egyptian businessmen and members of Pakistani community. The visit of the Foreign Minister is expected to further strengthen and diversify Pakistan's bilateral ties with the brotherly country of Egypt. The Minister for Communications and Postal Services, Murad Said, says digital franchise post offices are being set up all across the country to provide quality and affordable services to the customers. Addressing a ceremony in Islamabad today, he said initially 2,000 franchises are being launched during the current month, while 100,000 digital franchises will be launched during the next few years. The minister said 10,000 people have applied for the acquisition of digital franchises so far. The Minister of State for Climate Change, Zartaj Gul, says Pakistan, despite being a developing country, is playing an important role to overcome the impacts of climate change. Addressing the 9th International Maritime Conference 2021 in Karachi today, she said mangroves plantation is increasing in Pakistan as compared to other countries. The Minister of State said the government has set a target of planting 1 billion mangroves under the country's largest tree plantation drive with the name Billion Trees Tsunami, which shows its commitment to taking serious actions against climate change. The Minister for Human Rights, Shireen Mazari, says the government has taken steps, including legislation, to ensure the rights of the people, particularly the vulnerable segments of the society. Addressing the launching ceremony of the annual performance report of her ministry in Islamabad today, she said these steps include enactment of Anti-Rape Ordinance, Zainab Alert Response, Recovery Act and Islamabad Capital Territory Rights of Persons with Disability Act. Shireen Mazari said progress is also being made on the Protection of Journalists Bill as well as criminalization of enforced disappearances. The report highlights significant initiatives undertaken to protect and promote the rights of women, children, persons with disabilities, transgenders and other vulnerable population groups. This is Radio Pakistan. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, a complete strike will be observed on the occasion of the expected visit of selected European parliamentarians to the occupied territory on Wednesday. According to the Kashmir Media Service, the expected visit has been arranged by the Indian authorities and the strike call by the All Parties Hurriyat Conference. The strike is intended to remind the United Nations, the European Union and other world powers of their obligations to resolve the long-pending Kashmir dispute in accordance with the aspirations of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. A meeting of the All Parties Hurriyat Conference, Majlis-e-Shura, was held in Srinagar today, which was presided over by its working Vice Chairman Ghulam Ahmed Gulzar. The meeting stated that the visit of the selected European parliamentarians to the territory will not serve the Indian designs to hoodwink the international community. The meeting expressed grave concern over the miserable plight of the Hurriyat detainees and warned that if any untoward incident happened to them, the Kashmiri people would not remain silent spectators. The meeting urged the United Nations and the world community to impress upon India to stop the genocide of the Kashmiri people. Iran says it will block snap inspections by the United Nations nuclear watchdog this month if other parties to the 2015 nuclear deal fail to fulfill their obligations. The Foreign Ministry spokesman Saeed Khatibzadeh, in a statement, said if others do not fulfill their obligations by the 21st of this month, the government will be obliged to suspend the voluntary implementation of the additional protocol. He said Iran has not sought and will never seek nuclear weapons. The Supreme Leader's fatwa is valid. The Biden administration aims to bring the United States back to the nuclear deal, which former President Donald Trump abandoned in 2018. Under the deal, Iran agreed to curbs on its nuclear program in return for lifting of sanctions. In Syria, 9 pro-regime militia fighters have been killed in an Israeli missile strikes near Damascus. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said Israeli strikes targeted armed depots, including missile stores around Damascus. The Syrian army said in a statement that their air defenses are continuing to repel the Israeli missile attacks over the skies of the capital. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has expressed deep concern over the increased use of force and the reported deployment of armored vehicles in Myanmar. The United Nations spokesman Stefan Dujarric, in a statement, said the United Nations chief called on the military and the police of Myanmar to ensure that the right of the peaceful assembly is fully respected and demonstrators are not subjected to reprisals. He said reports of confirmed violence, intimidation and harassment by the security personnel are unacceptable. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Myanmar, Thomas Andrews, in a tweet, reiterated his call on member states to exercise influence collectively and bilaterally regarding the protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms of the people of Myanmar. And finally, the weather. Cold and dry weather is expected in most parts of the country during the next 12 hours. Fog is likely to prevail over the plain areas of the Punjab. And that is the end of this news bulletin. For more news and analyses, log on to our website, radio.gov.pk. And you can also watch the live video streaming of our bulletins on the link, facebook.com/Radio Pakistan News Official.